Please don't come, Margaret. Only special people will be there. That cruel text from my daughter-in-law shattered me. I was holding the pink dress I had ironed for my granddaughter's wedding, a dress I thought carried my hope. My knees nearly gave way. Special people. After paying rent, groceries, even Amanda's wedding gown, $33,400, that's what I had given. And now, after all that, I wasn't special. They say blood is thicker than water. But what happens when your own blood says you don't belong? Before we go deeper into today's story, let me pause for just a moment. I'm Margaret Hale, 67 years old, widow, retired teacher. For most of my life, I believed family was everything. When my husband passed away 6 years ago, I poured all my love, all my savings, into my only Isar. At first, I thought Amanda was charming. She had a smile that could light up a room, but behind closed doors, I often caught a flicker in her eyes, an entitlement that unsettled me. Still, I told myself, maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Maybe she'll soften with time. When they struggled with bills, I was there. When they wanted a nicer apartment, I co-signed the lease. When Amanda's health took a dip, I covered the medical costs. And when the wedding preparations began, I wrote check after check, even pulling from the little pension I had sworn I'd save for my own twilight years. It wasn't pity. It was love, or at least what I thought love should look like. A week before the wedding, I sat at my kitchen table late at night. The house was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator. In front of me lay a plain white envelope. Inside, $1,000 in crisp bills. A gift for the newlyweds. Not much compared to what I'd already spent, but symbolic. Something I wanted to hand them personally with a blessing. I remember slipping the envelope into the top drawer of my dresser, locking it and whispering to myself, "This is the last. After this, I'll keep what's left for me." That small act felt like rebellion, a line in the sand, because deep down I had begun to feel something was off. Amanda's words were sharper, Robert's calls were fewer, and the way they both looked at me, it wasn't gratitude anymore. It was expectation. 2 days later, I heard knocking. When I opened the door, Amanda stood there. She wore that rehearsed smile, the one she used for social media photos, but her tone was different, sweet on the surface, steel underneath. "Margaret," she began, "we're short on rent this month." Again. "Robert said you'd understand. You always do." I hesitated. For the first time in years, I let silence answer. Her smile faltered. Then came the dagger. "If you can't help us, maybe you're not as caring as everyone thinks. Don't make us believe you're losing touch with reality." Her voice dropped to a whisper, cruel and deliberate. "People talk. Margaret, you're getting older. If you can't manage your finances, someone else will have to. Have you ever had someone threaten you in your own doorway, your own family?" I stood frozen, my heart pounding. I wanted to scream, but instead I quietly closed the door. And for the first time in decades, I picked up my journal and wrote down a promise to myself. From this day forward, my money is mine. My choices are mine. That evening, my neighbor Helen Price happened to see Amanda and Robert arguing in the driveway. She later told me Amanda's voice carried across the street. "If she doesn't pay, we'll have to push harder." Don't worry, I have a plan. At the time, I brushed it off as marital tension. But looking back, it was the first shadow of the storm about to consume me. Because the very next day, I received that text. The pink dress still in my hands, the cruel words etched forever in my mind. Only special people will be there. If you were me, what would you have done in that moment? Would you show up anyway, uninvited? Or would you stay home, swallowing the years of sacrifice as if they had meant nothing? Little did they know, I had already started keeping records, receipts, bank statements, a diary of every favor I had been forced to give. They thought I was weak. They thought I was fading. They had no idea I was just beginning to see clearly. Before we dive into this dramatic story, don't forget to subscribe to Silent Tear Stories and turn on the notification bell. Here, you'll always find stories of sacrifice, betrayal, and the most unexpected twists. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below. Who knows, the next story might remind you of your own experience. Now let me take you back. The day of the wedding arrived like a bruise I couldn't hide. I didn't go. Instead, I sat by my window, watching neighbors drive past in their polished cars, holding wrapped gifts, their laughter trailing behind like ribbons. Somewhere across town, Amanda was walking down the aisle in a gown I had partly paid for. I pictured her radiant smile, Robert at her side, the music swelling. And me? I sat alone, the pink dress draped across the armchair like a ghost. In my dresser drawer, the envelope with $1,000 remained untouched. I told myself, at least they'll be happy. Maybe that's enough. But it wasn't. 2 days later, Robert called, not to apologize, not to explain. His tone was brisk, businesslike, almost rehearsed. "Mom, the rent is due. You know how it is. We can't fall behind right now." I swallowed hard. "Robert, don't you think it's time you both stood on your own? You're married now." Silence on the line, then cold as ice. "Are you really going to do this to us? After everything? Maybe Amanda was right. Maybe you can't handle things anymore." That sentence, it cut deeper than all the rest. Amanda's words had been cruel, but hearing them echoed by my own son, that was betrayal. That night, I opened the drawer and pulled out my old spiral notebook. Line by line, I began writing. $1,200 for their first sofa. $600 for a new air conditioner. $4,800 for Amanda's medical treatments. $7,500 toward the wedding venue deposit. $2,300 for rent during their rough patch. On and on until the final total glared back at me, $33,400. Do you know what it feels like to see your sacrifices reduced to numbers? It was like tallying the years of my love, only to realize love had become a ledger, one they felt entitled to drain. I whispered aloud, as if confessing to the empty room, "No more." Never again. A week later, the doorbell rang. Not Amanda this time. Robert himself stood there, suit jacket slung carelessly, Amanda hovering behind him. But they weren't alone. A third man stepped forward, a lawyer, briefcase in hand. "Mom," Robert began with false warmth, "we just want to talk about the future. About making things easier for you." The lawyer slid papers onto my dining table. "Power of attorney," he explained smoothly. "Just a precaution. It would let your son help manage your finances, should anything ever happen." My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. Lines of dense legal jargon, spaces marked with yellow tabs for my signature. Amanda leaned closer, her voice syrupy sweet. "We're only thinking of you." People your age can get confused, you know. One mistake with money could ruin everything. And then, the final twist of the knife, they gestured to a woman in scrubs who had accompanied them. "This is Yvonne," Amanda said. "She's a nurse. She'll do a quick evaluation just to reassure everyone you're still capable." Capable. The word tasted like poison. I felt my chest tighten. The humiliation was unbearable. They think I'm senile, I realized. They're trying to paint me as unfit. Have you ever stood in your own home and felt like a stranger? Like you were already erased, your life folded neatly into someone else's plan? I slammed the papers shut. "Get out," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. Amanda's smile cracked. "Don't be dramatic, Margaret. Sign the papers, and we'll all feel better." I grabbed the stack of documents and hurled them into the trash bin beside the table. My hands shook, but my voice did not. Out. Now, For the first time, Robert's mask slipped, his jaw clenched, his voice sharp. "You'll regret this. Don't make us take other steps." They left in a storm of whispers and slamming doors. The so-called nurse shot me a pitying look on her way out, but I saw it clearly now. It was all staged, a performance designed to strip me of my rights. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house felt like a warning. But instead of fear, something else rose in me. Resolve. The next morning, I made an appointment with Arthur Bennett, an old friend of my late husband and a seasoned lawyer. He greeted me with a warm handshake and sharper eyes than I remembered. After listening to my story, he leaned back in his chair and asked quietly, "Do you still have that pink dress?" I blinked, surprised. "Yes, why?" "Because," he said, sliding a small digital recorder across the desk, "I want you to start wearing it, not literally, but in spirit. You've been treated like a burden. It's time you act like the woman who still knows her worth." He tapped the recorder. "Every call, every visit, every insult, record it. They think you're weak, Margaret. Let them talk. Let them dig their own graves." His words lit a fire in me I thought long extinguished. For once, I wasn't just reacting, I was preparing. Days turned into weeks. Amanda kept calling, her tone alternating between syrupy kindness and simmering threats. Robert visited less, but when he did, his voice dripped with disappointment. "Mom, why are you making this so hard?" Each time I pressed the red button on Arthur's recorder. Each time I captured their greed, their entitlement, their manipulation. And every time I looked at the locked drawer where the envelope still lay untouched. $1,000. A gift that would never be given. A symbol of what they had thrown away. They believed they were tightening their grip. But really, I was building my case. If you were in my shoes, would you have signed those papers just to keep the peace? Or would you, like me, have chosen the harder path, the lonely fight for dignity? Little did Robert and Amanda know the stage they had set to humiliate me would soon become the stage of their own undoing. Because when greed writes the script, justice loves a twist ending. The night after throwing Robert and Amanda out, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan turning above me. The house felt different now, no longer a sanctuary but a battleground. Every shadow seemed to whisper, "They're not done. They'll be back." But for the first time in months, I didn't tremble. Instead, I whispered back, "Neither am I." The little recorder Arthur gave me sat on my nightstand, glowing red when I tested it. That tiny device was my shield, my proof, my weapon. I thought of my late husband, Richard. He had always told me, "Margaret, don't ever confuse kindness with weakness." And yet here I was, 67, accused of being incapable, robbed of dignity by the very child I had raised. "Not anymore," I murmured into the dark. It didn't take long. Amanda called the next morning, her voice syrupy, but every word tinged with acid. "Margaret, honey, we're worried. Robert says you've been forgetful. You left your porch light on all night again. That's not safe. We just want to help." I let her talk, my thumb pressing the recorder's button beneath the table. Then came the slip. "You know, if you just signed those papers, we wouldn't have to think about other options. Robert has already spoken to someone about guardianship. Courts take these things seriously, you know. They don't let confused old women handle property worth as much as yours." My pulse thundered, but my voice was calm. "Thank you, Amanda. I'll think about it." When I clicked the recorder off, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every mother, every widow, every older woman who had been told her worth expired the moment she stopped giving. A few evenings later, my neighbor Helen caught me outside, pulling weeds in the small garden Richard once loved. She leaned on the fence, concern etched across her face. "I don't want to pry," she said softly, but I overheard Amanda again. "Last week. She was in your driveway telling Robert you were becoming a liability. Said if you didn't cooperate, they'd have to..." force it." I swallowed hard. "Did anyone else hear?" Helen nodded. "My husband did. And we're willing to back you if it ever comes to that." A witness. The universe had just handed me a lifeline. At Arthur's office, I handed over the recorder, my hands still trembling from the weight of betrayal. He plugged it into his computer, and soon Amanda's honeyed venom filled the room. He smiled grimly. "Textbook financial coercion, and combined with your neighbor's testimony, it's more than enough to challenge any guardianship attempt." He leaned forward. "Margaret, they've underestimated you. But we need to be patient. Let them push further. Let them think they're winning. Every word they speak becomes another brick in the wall we'll use to corner them." I nodded, though my stomach twisted. Patience meant enduring more cruelty. But endurance was something I had mastered long ago. It happened on a Sunday. I was sipping tea when Amanda arrived unannounced, carrying groceries like some dutiful daughter-in-law. Behind her, Robert followed with a wide grin that didn't reach his eyes. "See?" Amanda said sweetly, unloading bags onto my counter. "We care. We're here to help." But the bags weren't filled with food I needed. They were luxury items, imported wine, overpriced cheeses, things I'd never buy. Robert opened a folder on the counter. "Mom, these are receipts. We've been helping you lately. Look here. We spent over $700 just this week. Courts look at who supports who. It's only fair it was a setup. They were planting evidence to make it seem like I depended on them." I smiled faintly, my thumb pressing the recorder in my pocket. "You're so thoughtful," I said evenly, "but I didn't ask for any of this." Amanda's eyes narrowed, sensing the resistance. "You'll come around, Margaret. You always do, but not this time." That night, I sat with Richard's photograph. His gentle eyes looked back at me, the kind that had steadied me through childbirth, sickness, and grief. "I don't know if I can keep fighting," I whispered. But then I remembered every sacrifice, the years of teaching late, saving every penny, cooking meals when I was exhausted, slipping $20 bills into Robert's college books when he thought I didn't notice. I remembered the pink dress still hanging in the closet, unworn, the envelope still locked in the drawer, the cruel words, "Only special people will be there." And suddenly I knew. I wouldn't just fight, I would win. Over the next few weeks, I played the role they expected, forgetful, gentle, gullible. When Amanda lectured me about responsible spending, I nodded. When Robert sighed about my slipping memory, I pretended to fumble with my keys. All the while, the recorder captured everything, every insult, every threat, every manipulative word. One evening, Amanda grew bolder, her voice sharp. "If you don't sign soon, Margaret, we'll have to involve the court. And once that happens, you won't have a choice. Everything you own, your house, your pension, even that silly pink dress, you'll lose it all. Better let us handle it now before you embarrass yourself." Click, recorded. I almost smiled. If you were me, would you have kept up the act? Pretending to be weak, letting them think they held the reins? Or would you have exploded, thrown every receipt, every recording in their faces right then and there? I chose silence, because silence, when used well, is louder than any scream. What Robert and Amanda didn't know was that Arthur and I were already preparing the stage. The guardianship papers they threatened me with would soon become their undoing. They thought they were tightening the noose around my neck, but I was the one holding the rope. It came in a thick envelope stamped by the county court, a petition for guardianship, filed by my own son and his wife. They claimed I was unfit, that I was forgetful, incapable of managing finances, at risk of losing valuable family assets. They even attached receipts, those groceries Amanda had shoved into my kitchen, to make it look as if they were supporting me. For a moment, the betrayal burned so deep I couldn't breathe. My own son, standing in line at a courthouse, signing his name on papers that declared me incompetent. But then, something steadied me. I placed the envelope beside the pink dress hanging in my closet and whispered, "This is the dress I'll wear. Not to your wedding, Amanda. To your undoing." The courtroom was colder than I expected, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. The walls smelled of polished wood and old paper. I walked in slowly, holding my head high, the pink dress draped over my shoulders like armor. Robert and Amanda sat at the petitioner's table, polished and smug. Amanda wore pearls, her hair styled like a politician's wife. Robert avoided my gaze, fiddling with his tie. When Judge Whitfield entered, stern, composed, I felt a wave of calm. This was no longer their stage, it was mine. Amanda went first. She clasped her hands dramatically, voice trembling with rehearsed concern. "Your Honor, we only want what's best for Margaret." She's been forgetful. She leaves appliances running. She spends money recklessly. We're terrified she'll lose everything my late father-in-law worked for. Her eyes darted toward me, crocodile tears glistening. "We've supported her financially these last few months. She refuses to admit she needs help. It breaks our hearts," Robert chimed in, voice low but firm. "Mom isn't the same. She's not making sound decisions anymore. We're just trying to protect her. I let them perform. I let the courtroom soak in their lies." Arthur stood calmly adjusting his glasses. His presence filled the room with quiet authority. "Mrs. Hale," he said, motioning me to the witness stand. I took my oath, my hands steady. Arthur began gently. "Margaret, could you tell the court what you've contributed financially to Robert and Amanda in recent years?" I opened my notebook, the same one I had filled on those lonely nights. Page after page, my handwriting documented every sacrifice. I paid their rent, their furniture, their medical bills, their wedding venue. In total, $33,400. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Arthur's voice sharpened. "Did you ever receive repayment?" "No," I said firmly. "Not once." Then came the moment. Arthur pressed play on the recorder. The courtroom hushed. Amanda's voice filled the air, dripping with cruelty. "If you'd just signed those papers, we wouldn't have to think about other options. Courts don't let confused old women handle property worth as much as yours." The judge's brow furrowed. Murmurs spread through the benches. Another recording. "Sign soon, Margaret, or the court will take everything you own. Even that silly pink dress. You'll lose it all." Amanda's face drained of color. Robert shifted in his seat, panic flickering in his eyes. Arthur turned. "Your Honor, we also have testimony from Helen Price, Margaret's neighbor." Helen walked to the stand, her voice steady. "I overheard Amanda telling Robert they'd have to force Margaret if she didn't cooperate, that she was becoming a liability." The courtroom buzzed. Amanda looked ready to sink through the floor. Finally, Arthur held up a small white envelope, the same one I had hidden in my drawer. "Margaret," he asked softly, "what is this?" Tears stung my eyes as I answered, $1,000, a wedding gift I never gave, because I was told I wasn't special enough to attend. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp and decisive. Judge Whitfield's voice was iron. "This court finds no evidence of incapacity. On the contrary, Mrs. Hale has demonstrated remarkable clarity and responsibility. The petition for guardianship is hereby dismissed." Her gaze hardened as she turned to Robert and Amanda. "This is not a matter of care. This is exploitation. Consider yourselves warned. Any further attempts to manipulate or coerce Mrs. Hale may result in criminal investigation." Amanda's mouth opened, but no sound came. Robert slumped, shame flushing his cheeks. For the first time in years, I saw them not as authority over my life, but as desperate small figures cornered by their own greed. I stood, my voice firm, every eye on me. You thought my silence meant weakness, but silence can also mean patience. And patience, I paused, my gaze locking on Amanda's, is how justice catches up. The pink dress shimmered under the fluorescent lights, not as a symbol of exclusion, but of resilience. If you had been in that courtroom, would you have cheered, or cried, or maybe both? Because in that moment, I didn't just win for myself. I won for every mother, every widow, every woman told she was no longer special. And yet, the story didn't end there. Because after court, I had a choice to make. Would I cut them off completely, or show them what true boundaries looked like? That choice would define the rest of my life. The echo of Judge Whitfield's gavel still rang in my ears as I walked out of that courtroom. The cold hallways felt warmer now, bathed in the quiet light of vindication. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of guilt, fear, or obligation. Amanda and Robert left in the opposite direction, heads down, avoiding my eyes. Amanda's pearls looked cheap under the fluorescent lights, her polished mask shattered. Robert's shoulders sagged, his confidence drained. I should have felt triumph, but what I felt was release. When I returned home, the little house seemed to breathe differently. The walls no longer felt like traps. They were mine again, mine without question. I unlocked the dresser drawer and pulled out the envelope. The crisp bills stared back at me, silent witnesses to everything I had endured. For a moment, I considered burning them, a ritual of closure. Instead, I tucked them into my journal, proof that even love has limits, that sacrifice without respect is just surrender. The pink dress hung in my closet, no longer a symbol of exclusion. It was the dress of my survival. Robert tried calling a week later. I let the phone ring until the voicemail picked up. His voice was strained, embarrassed. "Mom, we didn't mean for things to go this far." "Amanda." "Well, she got carried away, but we still want you in our lives." I didn't return the call. Instead, I wrote a letter. Short. "Firm Robert, I will always be your mother, but I will no longer be your bank. My love is not measured in dollars. Respect me or don't come at all. Mom, it wasn't revenge, it was truth. And truth, finally spoken, is its own kind of freedom." A month later, I sold the car Richard and I had once shared, a sedan too big for me now. With the money, I started a small scholarship fund for children at the local community center. I named it after Richard. That way, his name would carry not just the weight of sacrifice, but of legacy. Something pure, something untainted by greed. The first recipient was a shy girl who wanted to study nursing. When she hugged me, whispering thank you, it felt like the truest repayment I had ever received. Word of the court case spread in our small town. Neighbors stopped me in the grocery store, squeezing my hand. Some shared their own stories, sons who abandoned them, daughters-in-law who treated them like burdens, siblings who fought over inheritance. One woman whispered through tears, "I thought I was the only one." And I realized then, I wasn't just fighting for me. My story had become a mirror for countless others. As for Amanda and Robert, life didn't let them off easily. Amanda's company whispered behind her back, colleagues smirking at the courtroom gossip that leaked online. Robert, once so proud, avoided family gatherings, the weight of shame too heavy. I didn't gloat. I didn't chase them. Their downfall wasn't my responsibility anymore. Karma, after all, has its own clock. Some mornings, I walk to the park with Helen. We sit on a bench, sipping coffee from thermoses, watching children play. The air feels lighter now, carrying the sound of laughter instead of arguments. Other days, I tend my small garden, kneeling in the dirt, feeling Richard's presence in the roses he once planted. I live simply, quietly. But for the first time in decades, I live for me. If you've ever given until it hurt, only to be told you're not special, know this: your worth does not vanish when others stop recognizing it. Respect isn't given by blood. It's earned through love and kindness. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is draw a line and say, enough. If you were in my place, would you have forgiven Robert and Amanda? Or would you, like me, choose distance over destruction? Tell me, because maybe your answer will help another woman here find her own courage. I don't know what the future holds for Robert. Maybe one day he'll wake up and realize what he lost. Maybe not. Either way, I've stopped waiting for an apology that may never come. The pink dress still hangs in my closet. I wear it sometimes, not to weddings, but to the farmer's market or to lunch with Helen, because it isn't a symbol of exclusion anymore. It's a reminder that I survived being written off, dismissed, nearly erased, and I chose to live louder. So to every woman watching this, never let anyone convince you that your best years are behind you or that your sacrifices mean nothing. You are more than what you've given. You are who you are, and that is enough. If this story touched you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced a similar betrayal in your family? Or maybe you've found your own way to reclaim respect. Remember, here at Silent Tear Stories, no one suffers alone. We raise our voices together for justice, dignity, and the twists life never saw coming. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next story of sacrifice, betrayal, and the sweet taste of justice. Because in the end, the story isn't just mine.